Hello friends, welcome back. I'm Beth, here to help you fulfill your potential in meditation. As most of you know, I don't have just one method that I teach to everybody, like one size fits all. Instead, I much prefer to teach people one-on-one, and the reason is that you're all different. So please use these videos as a guideline, and if there's anything that isn't quite working for you or anything that doesn't quite fit, then be in touch and I'll be more than happy to discuss those things with you one-on-one. Today's video is about dealing with painful emotion when it arises in meditation, something that most of us will have to deal with from time to time. The Buddha gave this simile of meditation as being like washing out a dirty cloth. And he said that when we wash out a dirty cloth, the first thing that we see isn't a bright, shiny cloth. The first thing we usually see is all the dirt coming out. And that's the same with our minds. When we initially come to meditation, the first thing that we see isn't a bright, shiny mind. Instead, oftentimes it's all of the dirt coming out, and that can include some painful emotions. So what do we do with those painful emotions when they arise? The first thing that I would suggest that we do when painful emotions arise in meditation is to separate the thought from the emotion. Many emotions have a lot of thought associated with them. So for example, if we're feeling angry, we might be thinking, oh, how dare he do this? He should never have said that. It might be if we're feeling afraid, we might be thinking catastrophic thoughts. Oh no, this might happen, that might happen. What if this? What if that? It might be that if we're sad, we'll be thinking much about the thing that we feel that we've lost. The trouble is that when we indulge in those thoughts, they're only feeding the emotional state to get stronger, and so we can end up in quite a negative spiral. So our first step needs to be to separate the content of the thoughts from the emotion that we're feeling. And we can do that in a few different ways. The first and most simple way is simply to find the name for the emotion that we're experiencing. And then we can make a mental note. For example, this is sadness. This is sadness, or I'm feeling sad, or I'm feeling angry, whatever it might be. And that can cut away quite a lot of the thought. Another little way that we can use is to check in with the sensations in the body. So it might be that if we can't find a name for what we're experiencing, we might be able to notice, okay, my stomach is tight, my face is hot, my hands are tense, whatever that might be going on in the body. So checking in with the body can also help distance us from the thoughts. And another little method that we can use is to find an image, a mental image associated with what we're experiencing. It might be we think, I'm feeling like a stormy sea, or I'm feeling like a bottomless pit, or I'm feeling like a burning fire, whatever it might be. And in that way, when we find this mental image and we focus on that, it can help again to distance us from the thoughts that might be fueling our emotional state. Now, once we've managed to isolate the emotion from the thoughts, the next thing that we want to do is greet our emotion with acceptance. It's very common for people to greet their emotional states, especially painful emotions, with a degree of aversion. We might think, oh, I don't like this emotional state, it's wrong for me to feel this way, I'm not allowed to feel this way, I don't deserve to feel this way. Many different flavors of aversion, dismissal, rejection it might be. So obviously, if we're going to greet our emotional states with yet more aversion, we're only going to fuel our emotional states to get worse. So we need to bring in acceptance as soon as possible and as powerfully as possible. And in relation to this, I'd like to tell you one story. It's a story about a king, but not a normal king, he's a Deva King. Now, whether or not you think Devas exist isn't important. For the sake of this story, you can just imagine that they exist. Devas in Pali, they're like a type of angel that we find referenced a lot in the Pali texts. So this Deva king, his name was Saka, and he was a wise and beloved king. All of the other Devas in the Deva kingdom loved him. But one day, King Saka had to go away on some very important Deva business. And whilst he was gone, this big, ugly demon came and sat in his throne. When the other Devas saw that a big, ugly demon had come and sat in beloved King Saka's throne, they were horrified. So they started telling the demon to get out. But when the demon was told to get out, he just grew bigger and uglier and smellier. as he grew bigger and uglier and smellier, the demons got more the devas got more angry. So they started shouting at the demon, "Demon, get out of here, it's not your throne." But as the devas got angrier, the demon just got bigger and uglier and smellier. So eventually the devas were scared and they started throwing stones at the demon. But as they got more aggressive, the demon just got bigger and uglier and smellier, until eventually the demon's body was like overflowing the palace and his smelly body was oozing out of the palace windows. So the devas were terrified. They barricaded the palace door and they ran for the hills. Then just in the nick of time, King Saka came back and the devas ran up to him and they were like, "Saka, Saka, you'll never guess what happened, there's this demon." And King Saka, with all of his deva wisdom, was like, "Don't you worry, leave it to me." So King Saka approached the palace, pinching his nose because the demon was very smelly. And King Saka saw the demon, his smelly body overflowing the palace walls, and he said, "Demon, welcome, long time no see, how are you?" And when the demon heard Saka's friendly voice, his body started to shrink and his smell became a little bit less intrusive, a little bit less offensive. King Saka kept it up and he was like, "Oh, demon, is there anything that we can do to make you comfortable? Maybe you'd like a cup of tea or a biscuit." And when the demon heard these words, his body started to shrink even more and he became a little bit less smelly. King Saka kept it up. He was like, "Demon, maybe you'd like a hug, or maybe I could give you a foot massage. What would make you feel really at home?" And the demon grew even smaller. He started to shrink even more. And King Saka saw this and he said, "Demon, you know you can stay as long as you like. You're always welcome here." And when the demon heard these words, he vanished. Now, this is a beautiful story about the power of acceptance, and it's especially relevant to our emotions. When we're able to greet our emotions with acceptance in meditation, usually we find that either they eventually dissolve and we're able to go back to our meditation object with a calm mind, or maybe when one emotion dissolves, we find there's another emotion there, and then we can bring our acceptance to that emotion, and then our mind will become calm and we can go back to our meditation object. In any case, this acceptance stops fueling the emotion from getting bigger and uglier and smellier. So we want to greet our emotional states with acceptance, but having said that, there's another danger that we also need to keep in mind. And this is that whilst we don't want to greet our emotions with aversion, we also don't want to relate to them with clinging. And this is something that I see quite often when I'm teaching meditation, that sometimes when we're meditating we can think, "Oh, actually, I kind of want to stay with this painful emotion. It's a bit more interesting, it's a bit more compelling than being with my meditation object. Maybe I'll keep it around a little bit longer." We also might think, partially because of today's psychoanalytical society, that if we stay with our emotion long enough, we'll understand why the emotion is there, and then we'll be able to untangle it and the emotion will never come back. But emotion doesn't work like that. There's so many causes for our emotions that have built up over time, and by staying in an emotion for a long time, we won't find the one thing that caused that emotion to arise. So when our emotions arise, we need to greet them with acceptance, allow them to be there, but also allow them to go. When our mind becomes calm, we can return our attention to our meditation object, which is where our true progress lies. So that's all I have to say today on dealing with difficult emotions when they arise in meditation. There's more that I could say, but I also want to allow you to use your own wisdom and find your own solutions to difficult emotions when they arise in your practice. So what I would suggest is that you get off of the screens, get onto the cushions, actually start doing the practice and see what you can do when difficult emotions arise for you. If you're encountering any difficulties, if anything isn't working for you, then be in touch and I'll be more than happy to discuss those things with you individually. As most of you know, I do all of my work on a donation basis, so I encourage you to support me either through Patreon or through my website so that I can continue to make these videos. Thank you so much for your support. Wishing you the best with your meditation.